Hi, welcome back to Plan 9 Crunch. I'm Joe Gibson. This is Doug Gibson.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about the Friday the 13th franchise.
I have just finished reading a very long book. In fact, I'm not done. I'm on the Jason X or something. It's called Crystal Lake Memories. It's oral histories of people, the actors, the producers, the directors, the composers, the stuntmen, the directors of photography. Well, they talk about all the films. And those have been more entertaining, really, than watching all the films again.
You still did watch 1 through 8 to prepare for
Yeah,
this, though.
well, I saw 1 through 8. I may not have seen 1 in theaters, but I saw the other ones in theaters. And I enjoyed them in the 1980s. I enjoyed them. Having watched all of them, it made me appreciate how good the first one is compared to the other movies, which become, I don't want to say they're derivative because they were designed to make a certain amount of money for Paramount, and they wanted to make that money, and they had to deal with censors, with the MPAA, and they just were worried about trying new things for a long time. But 1 was a very effective movie. Nobody knows who Betsy Palmer is anymore, other than the mother.
Mrs. Pamela Voorhees
Yeah.
herself.
She was a glamour queen in the 50s and 60s on TV shows, a model. And I admire her for taking this role. It's kind of interesting. And what really worked for the first movie was having the young Jason come out over the canoe. The
Has
book
the little
talks
button
about
on the end.
yeah, how people were screaming about that. And that movie made $40 million or so, which is the equivalent of $140 million today. It was in 3D, and I saw that movie at midnight in the 80s. But it cost a little bit more. The Friday the 13th films were designed to cost about $2 to $3 million. And so the idea was they would make all their money back the first 3 days, and everything else was dessert. And so, for example, let's look at like Friday the 13th Part 2. It would cost $2 million, $2.5 million to make about $25 million. So it's a big cash cow for them. But after 4, the films didn't do that well. They made money, but they were dropping into the even below 20 by 8 and costing a little bit more. And that was because of competition from a sadistic man who appeared in people's dreams. Who was that, Joe?
Freddy Krueger, though the first film he's called Fred Krueger, and that's after Wes Craven's childhood bully.
Yeah. Let me give a quick update on my movies. I told you I think 1 is the best one.
Yeah.
I think 2 is meh, okay? I'm not dissing these films. It's difficult to make a movie, all right? 3, I kind of liked. I liked the heroine, who, by the way, is LDS, believe it or not, Mormon. The actress. I learned that.
Is she still after starring in that film?
I think she still is, probably.
Right.
I didn't go doing research, though. But I also like the fact that I think the 3D was pretty cool. You can't see it now when you watch it on video, but it was pretty cool. 4, I didn't care much for. It has Crispin Glover in it. By the way, Kevin Bacon's in the first one.
Oh, yeah.
And Corey Feldman, too, is in that movie. 5 is my kitschy delight. I even bought it for $5 on a stream because it's got to be one of the worst movies ever made. But it's so bad it's kind of entertaining. Do I give it away? Jason, I'm going to give it away. Jason is not the killer in this one.
Yeah, so like the first film, it's an incredibly weak murder mystery.
Yeah, and apparently there was a lot of drugs on that set too. The director had made porn in the past. And I'll give you a little anecdote from the book. There's a scene with an actress, and her last name is Voorhees, Deborah Voorhees or something, all right? And
Fun coincidence.
There's a scene of her having sex before they die. And Friday the 13th probably was one of the primary films to introduce people having sex, teenagers having sex and then dying. But they filmed her having sex with her boyfriend. And these 2 kids are just running around all the time being caught by the cops having sex, okay? And so Paramount's executives were watching the dailies, and some guy goes, "My God, we're making a porno film." Okay, and so now probably, like most of us, we haven't seen real porno. Okay, but they thought it was, and the director saying, "No, his name was Danny Steinman. He's dead now. I was just making a softcore movie." Okay, so anyways, Paramount said this can't have this much sex in the film and nudity. So that scene is rather cut, even though 5 has the most nudity of all the movies. It didn't do very well at the box office because the book also points this out. It was kind of filmed like a porno movie, just episodic, character introduced without any kind of development, one murder after another. And so 5 left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Now, when a film's 40 years old, it tends to get more people thinking nostalgically about it, all right? And honestly, I got to tell you, if you watch it, it's a lot of fun. It's appallingly
we can
bad.
save like individual thoughts on the films for a little bit later. You're going through like the box office overviews right now.
It only got like $20 million, $21 million, which disappointed people. So they had huge expectations for 6 coming out. And critics loved 6, but people weren't interested. 6, for example, was could have been even PG-13 if not for the killings. It got 19 million. What's going on here?
Well, if you're keeping score, 6 does bring back Jason. It also recasts Corey Feldman's guy, who was played by someone else in the 5th movie, so it's the third actor for
that. Well, the guy
Jarvis?
that's in Return of the Living Dead is in 6. Tom Matthews, I think his name is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ron Palillo, if you're a boomer like me, he was Horshack in Welcome Back, Kotter, a TV show. He gets killed off in the prologue. And the book talks about how they played a lot of pranks on Ron because Ron was a bit stuffy. Okay. But the book's a lot of fun to read. I think it's also a movie.
Okay.
Crystal Lake Memories. By the way, I discovered there's fan fiction for Friday the 13th Part 2.
Oh, there's fan fiction for all of it.
Well, no, I meant fan fiction film. And a lot of the actors are in those movies. I've never heard of them, but I looked at IMDb and everything. They're ostensibly sequels to Friday the 13th Part 2.
Captivated the youth's imagination.
I don't know. They probably made a little bit of money. Who knows? I never saw them in theaters. They're probably just direct to stuff. But anyway, so 7 was an attempt, and I've confessed to Joe that I kind of had a crush on Lara Park Lincoln, all right, she's like the Carrie of this series.
Yeah, that's how they pitched it.
Yeah, so she's able to battle Jason on pretty equal terms at the end. And that didn't make a lot of money, and it frustrated them. And then they came out with 8, where they filmed it mostly in Vancouver, but moved into Manhattan on a cruise boat.
It takes Manhattan. It was 2 scripts that they had to condense into one, probably because of the poor earnings of the previous one. One where he's on a cruise ship and one where he's in New York, so they just mashed them together.
And that made even less money. Or maybe not. It made about the same amount, $19 million.
Is that when Kane Hodder popped up as
Kane
Jason?
Hodder pops up in about, I think he pops up in 7, which is the Lara Park Lincoln one.
He's at least in
He's
8
in 4.
10.
He's in 4 of them.
He's in 4, then that'd be 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah. And so they finally just said, what's funny is this number 8, they tried to release 2 weeks before Freddy, and it dropped off horrendously after the first week.
Which Freddy film would that have been?
That was the 5th one.
5th one.
Which turned out to not make a lot of money. I mean, more than Friday the 13th.
Is that Dream Child?
I think. I'm not sure. I remember it's the one that has like a bunch of television stars in it or something.
That was the stage when Freddy was more like a goofy comedy character than like a killer.
Yeah. So, but Paramount eventually wanted to make a movie. They wanted to get together with New Line, and Sean Cunningham came back, all right? So they sold to New Line with the idea of eventually making a Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah.
But they made 2 films called Jason, which Joe, I have not seen those movies, I've only read about them, but they were box office disappointments. The first one made a teeny bit of money. The second one lost money.
Yeah, we'll wrap around to them in a second.
Yeah.
But then after Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, and then Jason X, we finally get Freddy versus Jason, and that was the box office hit there.
Which I've never seen either, and I was going to try to watch it, but they want to charge me $4.95 to rent it. I'm not ready to do that right now.
Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of all these movies. Probably I've seen the whole of the first one, but I also like to watch videos on YouTube just recapping all this stuff. There's like a 3-hour video of someone trying to piece together a coherent timeline that I've watched a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was a remake, and that one is the 2009
Which
remake.
I want to see that movie. I think it's going to be on Svengoolie soon, so maybe I'll watch it there. That made a fortune. See, both those last two films made a lot of money. The two Jason films disappointed.
Yeah.
And even the Freddy one started. Freddy's New Nightmares made about $35 million.
Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Well, there was one called Freddy's Nightmare or something like that. Freddy's Dead or something.
Freddy's Dead was the fifth. No, not the fifth. It was the one right before Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I think.
I'm 62, and I have pleasant memories of watching the Friday the 13th movies in theaters. I go with my sister, who's passed away now. We never missed them. But I went a long time. By the time I went to college, I didn't need Freddy. I didn't need Jason after the last one when he went to Manhattan, which they throw a lot of comedy in that one.
Oh yeah,
which
there's
I don't think people liked that.
buckets of toxic waste all over New York City.
Well, there's also the first thing he sees is a big billboard with a hockey mask on. He cocks his head, in that movie.
Is that the one where he punches a guy's head clean off?
Yes, there's a boxer in that film, and the boxing scene's done horribly at the beginning because they're like in a 2-foot ring fighting, all right, which I never do, But yeah, the boxer, I kind of liked that character. I was kind of bummed he got killed at the end. He blew his head right off with a punch. Said, "Give me your best, Jason."
And then Jason teleports when he's killing a couple other people.
See, that's where I don't... Look, first of all, Jason is dead, okay? So he gets resurrected. We didn't mention that in the sixth one, there's actually a sort of an homage in a weird way to Frankenstein.
Well, okay, I guess we probably should... Okay, Jason... At one point, I wanted to have a video here about explaining if he is or isn't a Deadite, because the Necronomicon Ex Mortis appears in the 9th film.
And the director of Jason Goes to Hell thinks that.
Yeah.
Marcus, I think, is his last name.
And that's why he put the Necronomicon in the film. There's also a big knife in the ninth film that was supposed to be the Kandarian dagger, but that was changed. In comic book materials, Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, he's a Deadite and so is Freddy or something. But there's a bit more to it than just that, because even if the Necronomicon's what makes him, he wouldn't be just a Deadite. So, okay, let's run through Jason's many deaths right now.
Well, Jason dies a million ways, okay?
He dies a million ways. He drowns as a kid.
Yeah.
Some films pretend he didn't drown as a kid, but other films make it expressly clear his first death was drowning as a kid.
Yeah.
Somehow he comes back to life. We don't know how or why. Does it happen after the first movie, or does it happen before the first movie?
The reason it happened... the first movie has him... It's considered to be probably a dream sequence at the time. But then they thought, okay, we're not going to be able to bring Betsy Palmer back, okay? But we can, because he's lost her head. But we can bring Jason back, and it turned out to be a profitable thing.
The next couple films also end with those kinds of dream sequences where you can't tell what's real or not. So it's probably just a feature of these movies. Whether or not Jason was alive yet is hard to say. Some people think he was helping his mother do the murders in the first movie. That's kind of a silly thing because he wasn't around as a character yet by that point. But
all I hear is kiki mama, kiki mama. But I think that they had an idea of making a one-shot film of Friday the 13th. He had a perfect title. Do you know how that movie came to be? He put an ad saying Friday the 13th will be out in 6 months or something, and they suddenly had to make the movie.
They had some ideas before they put the ad, but not a finished script by any means.
Yeah, and Jason became iconic. We're talking about the lack of continuity in these movies. Well, what about the lack of continuity in Universal films? Okay,
we'll get there. Sorry. First, he dies as a child. Then he comes back to life. He's living as a hobo in the woods with a sack on his head.
Yeah, that way they do have a sack on his head in the second one, don't they?
He doesn't die in the second one. Just he gets injured and left for dead, right?
Something like that. They brought Betsy Palmer in to do a few scenes in that movie too.
In the third film, he seems to die again. He gets hit with the axe, and then he just lays there for days. In the fourth film, he actually does die.
And he gets it right through the eye. Yeah.
And so he's dead throughout 5. In 5, they say that he was cremated, but that's because 5 is a different continuity than 6. 6 is a redo of 5 based on all the available information.
They were going to do an anthology series of a different type of topic for Friday the 13th Part 5, and then somebody must have watched Halloween 3, looked at the box office, and realized that wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, but they have a different person under the mask in 5, but they say that Jason was cremated, and he clearly wasn't, because in 6 is when the Universal homage comes in.
Yeah, and 6 is when it's Universal. I mean, Tommy, like he's following the script, so I shouldn't say this. He's so stupid. He digs him up, okay, and so sticks a thing in him, lightning strikes, and boom, Jason's walking the earth again. We've also joked around how could Jason see when his eyes have largely gone away by now, but it doesn't really matter, okay? And so at that point, you can't kill Jason.
Yeah, you can only trap him at the
trap
bottom of the
him,
lake.
yeah. They trap him in the next 2 movies.
However,
in 8, they do destroy him.
With some toxic sludge.
Yeah, and so guess what? Sean Cunningham insisted that you not throw 8 into the canon when he made Jason Goes to Hell.
That's interesting. Well, in any case, I know that the deaths that follow from that point on, so you could view this as any time he gets hit by lightning, it's a power-up. That's kind of a silly thing, but it's in line with these movies, so he gets several more power-ups before the end of this run. In Jason Goes to Hell, he's blasted to bits, but if you eat his heart, then you turn it into Jason temporarily, and he needs another Voorhees to have his heart so he can be reborn.
Yeah, someday I need to see Jason.
And that sounds very confusing, because how does that make sense with how he came back the last few times?
Nothing makes sense.
Unless he sprouted out of Mrs. Voorhees' body once she got decapitated. That doesn't really make...
I refuse to see a movie where he goes into 2245 and lives in outer space or something, okay?
That's Jason X, the next film, and he kind of dies there. He gets frozen at the beginning of the movie, but later I think he dies, and then some nanites take over his body to become Uber Jason, and then he gets he catches on fire when re-entering Earth's atmosphere, and then he's just gone forever.
Crazy.
But Freddy versus Jason is between these, and that's when Freddy brings him back to life. And in Jason X, they say that he has regenerative capabilities that they're studying. So it seems like the answer here is that when Freddy brought him back to life, he started being able to self-heal.
See what happens? I can't remember which one it was, but about 25 years ago, I saw a Halloween movie where suddenly all these scientists are working to better understand Michael Myers, and they all are worshiping some kind of religion on him. I'm thinking, this is jump the shark, okay?
It's got to be 6, right? That's
probably
the
6.
Revenge of Michael Myers?
Yeah, I mean, it gets so silly after a while when all it came down to is a grief-stricken mother who's taking revenge on a bunch of kids because they let her kid drown.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. The Jason series, all-inclusive, it takes over what slashers are, right? Because it comes pretty early on in the slasher boom. Halloween is what starts it, but by Halloween 2, they're taking notes from Friday the 13th for the kills, for the paper-thin characterizations, for the sex equals death thing.
One thing Friday the 13th has got going for it is the films that created because of it are pretty crappy. Whether you're talking about a Mountaintop Motel Massacre, or The Dorm That Dripped Blood, or The Burning, or Sleepaway Camp. And those films make Friday the 13th look halfway decent. There was an effort as early as the second film to try to make the films less amateurish. I don't know if they actually accomplished that.
Well, I mean, 4 films later, they're hiring a porn director, so...
Yeah, that movie is also cruel, because obviously killing all these kids is cruel, but that movie had kids in a home for troubled kids, and they had scenes where they were going through really traumatic things, like there's this and Jason swoops up and kills them.
It's not really Jason, but it kind of is. He has the mask.
No. The killer is.
Well, no, don't spoil it. Don't spoil it by any means.
I don't think I'm spoiling anything I told.
But,
you, right?
Not only is there a mask, but he's put on Jason's a reconstruction of Jason's his clean bald scalp, because the guy has hair.
That was weird. If you read about that, if you read that book I'm telling you about, 5 is an incredible chapter to read because there's so much turmoil. The guy that played the killer, he really had almost a nothing role. He had 2 or 3 lines, and he wanted to be taken more seriously. And they were saying, "Dude, you're just in the movie. You're in the reveal at the end." He had to be in one scene where they show him dead, And then he was trying to contact. They had an unnamed. They just used stuntmen for Jason, okay. And he tried to contact the stuntman to tell because he wanted to talk about how he would be a killer, and they told him to get lost. All right, so it was a kind of an unfortunate situation in that movie. But some of these films had better communication and better feelings on the sets. Some 2 or 3 were racked by drug abuse and stuff like that. But that book is very interesting. And like I said, I haven't seen Freddy vs. Jason. I intend to see it. I just haven't gone around to it. I will see the one that was made in 2009 to see if it's any good, and I'd like to see that movie.
Many people argue it is the best of the Jason movies by virtue of being almost competent.
The thing is, though, you can't really call Almost Competent as the best of the films.
If the rest aren't, then...
The first one, though, is so shocking, such an incredible ending, and so, in its sense, unique for the time, that has to be put into place, too.
Well, yeah, then all the other films are doing the same thing, pretty much.
3 was a little bit different. Okay, it showed some 3D activity. It had a very spunky heroine in that movie.
Well, yeah, but we are just changing out the details of the same car, essentially, the same product.
Oh, I agree with you.
Coat of paint.
I'm just saying some are
there.
better than after 4. I don't think any of them are really that good. Apparently, there was a lot of harmony on the set for for 6 and 8, but I don't think those films are anything special. They had to deal with censors. I mean, the guys are grousing in the book, all the stuff they took out, would be no big deal now. And they even got to the point where they would film 3 versions of each kill scene. So they didn't have to go back and do something, invariably when the MPA would say, no, you can't do this.
That's all very interesting.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, so... Jason, how many films does he have? He has like 12 or 11 of them?
Well, if you count the 8, 9, 10, 11, 9, 10...
Freddy vs. Jason's 11, then the remake is 12. Okay.
Yeah, but you have 2 fan films that if you...
Never Hike Alone or something, right?
No, there's 2 of them. They're ostensibly sequels from Friday the 13th Part 2, and they have some of the actors in it.
Well, okay.
I've never seen them. I don't know how to find them, but probably
I'm not going to count Nezra in 1964 as a Gamera film just because the guy who plays Osako from the Gamera films.
No, you're right. There's really only 11 films, to be honest, if you're considering all of them.
Well, 12, right?
12 if you consider Friday the 13th.
Halloween, there's 13 of those, right?
Oh God, there's only 2 or 3 that are good though.
And Freddy, I feel like there's less than 10 for Freddy. So Jason makes up almost the majority of what the slasher genre is, and definitely within that time frame, the majority of what it was.
Friday the 13th had a series, a TV series also. And they
also
poached
counts.
some actors from it, but Friday the 13th was not, the TV series was simply an anthology. And I only watched 1 or 2 episodes. I thought they were pretty extreme for TV, but it was taken off the air despite being one of the top syndicated shows because of the moral majority arguing about it and getting sponsors and advertisers leery, believe it or not.
There's going to be a new TV show, right? That's going to have, what is her name?
Yeah, it's going to have Pamela Voorhees.
Who's playing her though? It's the Linda Cardellini who's going to play Pamela Voorhees.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Put it that way, okay. I don't know if we need to know about Jason being brought up. It reminds me of the TV series that had Norman Bates being brought up by his mother. I don't know what the point is really to have those kind of shows.
Well, I mean, Bates Motel I don't see the point for, but in this we only have 1 film with Mrs. Voorhees, right? So
well, she's in 2 a bit.
She's in 2 posthumously.
I know.
We only have 1 film exploring her grief, and to have the build up towards that film or towards a version of the events of that film as a TV show, it could explore the character. It could be genuinely good.
Yeah,
There's sort of untapped potential there.
So, to go back a little bit, this was a cash cow for Paramount. They wanted it, and every Monday they would celebrate because they'd already made a few $1 million in profit. And I think it just got to the point where it wasn't making enough money, so they sold it. But they were smart. They knew they'd have to align themselves with Freddy Krueger, and they ended up making far more money than any of the films made. And then, of course, when they remake, there's that nostalgia thing you little kids have, okay? So they went and watched it.
It's also probably the best of the 2000s remakes for horror. That's not really a high bar to clear.
I haven't seen many of them. The one I did see was the Halloween one from 2017.
Did you see
18.
Oh no, I mean like the 2000s trend, the 2007 Rob Zombie Halloween, the 2000.
Yeah, I didn't like that. My friend,
2006,
my
whenever Nightmare on Elm Street
co-blogger
remake came
Steve
out.
D. Stones liked that movie. I was interested in seeing Nightmare on Elm Street because I liked the actor whose name I can't recall right now that played Freddy Krueger. I think he was the kid in the Bad News Bears, who played Kelly in the Bad News Bears. That was in the 70s. I think he might have been the guy. I don't know how much money that movie made, but no, I just at that point, you and I went to see Scream 7.
Yes.
Okay, it's hard for me to watch those kind of movies now.
This is also a
Okay.
bad one.
Okay, well, I had to turn away from some of those kills, and
The CGI, it ruins the kill.
those kills would not have been approved in the Friday the 13th movies. But one thing I like about Friday the 13th we're not talking about enough is how it brought up some early careers. You know, Kevin Bacon, making in the first one, Crispin Glover in the fourth one, and those guys are cool enough to provide their memories in this book.
Well,
and I believe Johnny Depp is in A Nightmare on Elm Street,
Yeah,
right?
he's in the first Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Jared Leto, though he won't acknowledge it, was an urban legend from later on in the slasher boom.
Daryl Hannah was in The Burning, which is a lesser-known slasher film from that time period. And I think Rachel Ward, who you no longer know who she is, she used to be a movie star in the 80s, is in that movie. So these are proving grounds for young kids. And I found it interesting that in the book when the actors are recollecting their work and things like that. I thought it very interesting. I'm going to say this for the third time. Highly recommend Crystal Lake Memories. If you get the Kindle, it's only $9.99. Yeah, and then I have to find a movie because I keep seeing it listed as a movie too. Joe, is there anything else you want to say about this?
Well, I would probably still say it's the most consistent slasher franchise. Not necessarily a good thing. Jason X we didn't spend that much time on. It's sort of like Star Trek The Next Generation, but sexed up and with Jason in it. Yeah.
Well, we should say, we should give tribute to Sean Cunningham. Also to Steve, is it Steve Miner, who directed a couple of
Well, I know it's Miner. I'm not sure if it's Steve.
Yeah, if it isn't Steve, I apologize. And then Wes Craven, although he really didn't make any of these movies, had a lot of kind of input and inspiration.
He barely made the Freddy movies.
Yeah, he made a really horrifying movie. And of course, I can't remember the name because I'm on camera right now, but it's Last House on the Left. Now, I'm not talking about the one made in this century. I'm talking about the one made in 1974. Also, who is that that makeup guy who did Dawn of the Dead and everything?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, he also had a role in some of these in creating the costumes and things like that and everything and the makeup. And so a lot of people were involved. A lot of talented people were involved in these movies. Anyways, we're Plan 9 Crunch. And you know what? You can get at least the 8 Friday the 13th really cheap. You know, they're not very expensive at all if you want to have just a repertoire and watch them. Remember,
Walmart has some discs that have the combinations of them, right?
Yeah, but I found them on Amazon pretty cheap. And like I said, I think you can stream them even cheaper. And we're Plan 9
Provided
Crunch.
they're up. Last October, they were all on like HBO Max, but sorry, they're not right now.
A lot of them are on Pluto right now, except you know what's really funny is I went to try to prepare for the show. I decided to watch the New Blood again because Pluto keeps going out on me. And it went out on me again, but it came on in Spanish. Okay. So you got to subscribe to us at Plan 9 Crunch. We have these things 3 times a week and you'll love them. And we're on Facebook at Plan 9 Crunch Podcast and Plan 9 Crunch Podcast and blog. TikTok, we occasionally put something on there. You can like us there. And we have a blog called plan9crunch.com. I don't believe we've reviewed any of the Friday the 13th movies. Maybe we should try to review at least the original.
Probably done 5, but we'll have to double check.
I don't think I've done 5, have
You haven't done 5? If there are, I'll put them in the link in the description.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. And this is Doug Gibson, Joe Gibson. That's a wrap.